So this is the result with the Eevee motion blur add-on. And I'm going to keep this out of the main course as much as possible as it's an add-on. And I want to make sure things are going to be compatible in the future. Blender, I'm sure at some point is going to add a built-in way to do this. So it might change a little bit in the future. So here's the link to the downloads on GitHub. You just simply clone download and then download zip. The Python file within here, you're going to have to extract that. So sometimes, with Eevee, you can, or with Blender add-ons, you can actually just use the whole zip file. But in this case, we have to actually extract this. So I'm just going to drag and drop this to my desktop and then simply go to my preferences and then add-ons, install. Then I'm just going to use the Eevee motion blur.py install add-on, and then we'll just do a search really quick and then make sure this is going to be on. And then the setup's really, really quick. It's really straightforward. All we have to do is go to our render properties, and then it's going to be right down here. And instead of using render animation, we'll use render motion down here. So there's going to be render motion blur frame, render motion blur sequence. But before we do this, we have to switch it over to an image sequence. So this is an image sequence. So we did a movie file before. So this is much, much more of a standard workflow. The reason for this is basically so that we can just do individual frames. So if our render crashes or whatever it may be, we don't have to render the whole thing again. And then at the very end, when we get to our jet, we'll compile these and make an edit out of them and export that as a movie file. So to set up an image sequence, all you have to do is go to our output properties, go to our box. I'm just going to set this up to be version 4. And then I'm going to do file format, and then we'll just do JPEG. JPEG is totally fine for just quick flipbook and playblast or render animations. I'm going to do quality 100%, and then we'll simply go back to our render properties and then do render motion blur. The settings in here, they're pretty self-explanatory. The start frame, end frame should all sync up. And then what I'm going to do is just simply click render motion blur sequence. And then from here, it's definitely going to take a while. So make sure you save your file before you do this. The hotkey to cancel is going to be Control C. I'm going to go ahead and let this run through all the way. And we'll start this up as soon as it's done. So a good tip whenever you're rendering these frames, there's not a progress bar in Blender with this. So for me, what I do is I just open up my folder that I'm rendering this out into, and you can kind of watch the frames progress from there. It just finished up. So what I'm gonna do is go back to Blender. I'm gonna make sure I save this and just do a render and then view animation. There we go. That's gonna wrap that up.